You gained 2 pounds this week and all you did was smell a piece of bread. You are not joking and you know it. You sit at dinner and watch everyone else eat the same food, and somehow your body treats every single calorie like a precious treasure it absolutely refuses to surrender. You wear a sweater in July. Your coworkers are fanning themselves, someone has a portable desk fan going at full speed, and you are sitting there in a knit cardigan wondering why your internal thermostat feels like it was permanently set to Arctic. You are not being dramatic. Your hands are cold when everyone else's hands are warm. Your brain checks out at 2 in the afternoon like a laptop with a dying battery, and no amount of sleep repairs that exhaustion. You have cut the calories, you have walked the miles, you have done the work. And the needle on the scale does not care. Here is what your doctor almost certainly never told you, and what the supplement industry has spent decades burying under mountains of iodine bottles. The problem is not your thyroid gland. Let me say that again because I need it to land. The problem is not your thyroid gland. Your gland may be producing exactly what it is supposed to produce. The catastrophic failure is happening somewhere else entirely, in a conversion process that almost no one over 50 is completing correctly. And until you fix that specific bottleneck, no amount of dieting, no amount of exercise, and absolutely no bottle of high-dose iodine from the drugstore will rescue your metabolism. Today, I am going to show you the exact biological mechanism that is keeping you frozen, tell you precisely why the mainstream recommendation is making it dramatically worse, and hand you a science-backed protocol that targets the actual problem at the molecular level. Stay with me through all of this, because what I am about to lay out will completely change the way you understand your own body. Let us talk about what is actually happening inside you right now. Your thyroid gland sits at the base of your throat, shaped like a small butterfly, and its primary job is to produce a hormone called T4. T4 is thyroid hormone in its raw, unfinished form. Think of it like a production line at a large manufacturing facility. The thyroid is the factory floor, and T4 is the material rolling off the assembly line, boxed, stacked, and waiting. But here is the critical detail that mainstream medicine almost never explains clearly. T4 is not the hormone that actually does the metabolic work. T4 is inert. T4 is the precursor, the raw material, the unfinished part sitting in a crate waiting to be processed. The hormone that actually ignites your metabolism, raises your core body temperature, burns stored fat, sharpens your cognition, and powers every single cell in your body is a completely different molecule called T3. T3 is the finished product. T3 is the active hormone, and your factory has been shipping crates of raw material for years without ever completing the final assembly. The conversion from T4 to T3 does not happen in the thyroid at all. It happens in the liver and in the kidneys, facilitated by a specialized family of enzymes called deiodinases, specifically the type 1 and type 2 deiodinase enzymes. These enzymes are the factory workers. Their job is to take that raw T4 molecule and shear off a single iodine atom from a specific position on the molecular chain, converting the inactive precursor into active, working T3. When those enzymes are functioning optimally, this conversion happens efficiently. Your metabolic furnace runs hot, and your body burns fuel the way it was designed to. When those enzymes slow down, which they do, systematically and predictably after age 50, the raw T4 material piles up in your bloodstream like unprocessed inventory stacking to the ceiling of an unstaffed warehouse. Your thyroid blood tests may even come back completely normal because the gland is producing T4 just fine, but the conversion is broken, the workers left the building, and your metabolism froze in place. This phenomenon is called thyroid underconversion, and it is one of the most clinically documented yet functionally ignored conditions in adult medicine. The deiodinase enzyme activity depends heavily on selenium availability at the cellular level. Selenium is not optional for this process. It is structurally embedded in the enzyme itself. Selenocysteine, a selenium-containing amino acid, forms part of the active catalytic site of every deiodinase enzyme in your body. Without adequate bioavailable selenium, the enzyme cannot complete the conversion reaction. It is precisely like trying to run heavy industrial machinery with no power source connected to the motor. The machine exists. The design is correct. But without the specific fuel it requires, nothing moves. Additionally, chronic low-grade inflammation, which surges predictably after 50 due to a cellular aging process researchers now call inflammaging, directly suppresses deiodinase gene expression at the transcriptional level. Your inflammatory environment is physically silencing the genes that code for the enzymes your metabolism depends on. Your cortisol dysregulation from decades of accumulated physiological stress further suppresses the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis at the upstream signaling level, reducing the hormonal cascade that tells your thyroid to produce sufficient T4 in the first place. This is a compounding, multi-layered failure, and every single layer of it is explainable by aging physiology. The solution I am building toward addresses all of it simultaneously, at the root. Stay with me because the protocol I am about to deliver is extraordinarily precise. Now, I need to talk to you directly about what is sitting in your medicine cabinet right now, or what you were about to order because someone in a health forum or on a late night television advertisement told you it would fix your sluggish thyroid. I am talking about high dose iodine capsules. I am talking about megadose kelp supplements packed with elemental iodine. I am talking about the mainstream recommendation that floods the aging thyroid with raw iodine in the hope that giving it more raw material will somehow supercharge hormone production. This advice is not just ineffective for your actual problem. At the doses commonly sold and enthusiastically recommended, it is clinically dangerous for a substantial percentage of adults over 50, and the peer-reviewed research makes this devastatingly clear. A landmark study published in Thyroid, the official journal of the American Thyroid Association, demonstrated that excessive iodine intake in adults with any degree of pre-existing subclinical thyroid autoimmunity, which represents a substantial and often undiagnosed proportion of the over 50 population, can trigger a condition called iodine-induced thyroiditis. The mechanism is direct and well established. Excessive iodine increases the production of reactive oxygen species within thyroid follicular cells, which activates inflammatory immune cascades and can trigger autoimmune thyroid destruction. The Wolff-Chaikoff effect, a phenomenon identified in research going back to the mid-20th century and repeatedly validated since, demonstrates that high iodine loads paradoxically suppress thyroid hormone synthesis entirely in the short term, a protective physiological reflex that becomes profoundly dysregulated in aging and inflamed thyroid tissue. Studies examining populations with elevated dietary iodine intake consistently show that individuals over 50 are significantly more vulnerable to both hyperthyroid flares and subsequent hypothyroid rebound events following iodine. Loading. What this means in practical terms is that swallowing a 500 or 1,000 microgram iodine supplement can, in a body with subclinical Hashimoto's autoimmunity or iodine-sensitized thyroid tissue, cause a full inflammatory storm inside the exact gland you are trying to support. You could trigger an autoimmune flare that damages the gland permanently. You could produce a cortisol and adrenaline surge that worsens your metabolic suppression for months. You could make the weight gain dramatically and irreversibly worse. The supplement aisle is selling you a fire accelerant and packaging it as a cure. More critically, high-dose iodine is not even addressing the correct mechanism. It is not feeding the deiodinase enzymes. It is not touching the actual broken conversion pathway. It is dumping raw material into a factory where the workers are already gone and then wondering why production does not increase. Here is what does work, and here is precisely why it works at a level of molecular specificity that the iodine industry does not want you to understand. The critical rate-limiting factor in T4 to T3 conversion is not iodine availability. It is selenium availability in a form that the deiodinase enzymes can actually incorporate and use. Selenomethionine is an organically bound form of selenium in which the selenium atom is incorporated directly into the amino acid methionine structure, forming a complete bioavailable nutrient compound. This is not inorganic selenium salt. This is not selenium dioxide. This is the form of selenium that the human body recognizes as a protein bound nutrient, absorbs with dramatically superior efficiency compared to inorganic forms, and delivers directly into the selenoprotein enzymatic machinery that drives thyroid conversion. Research comparing selenomethionine to sodium selenite, the common inorganic selenium compound found in low grade multivitamins, demonstrates that selenomethionine produces significantly higher and more stable plasma selenium concentrations and achieves measurably superior incorporation into the selenoprotein enzyme family, which is the exact protein family that includes your type 1 and type 2 deiodinases. A clinical trial published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism confirmed that targeted selenium supplementation in patients with autoimmune thyroiditis significantly reduced thyroid peroxidase antibody titers, directly addressing the autoimmune inflammatory suppression of deiodinase activity. The enzyme receives its cofactor, the conversion checkpoint is cleared, the T3 flows, and your metabolic engine begins to generate heat again. Paired with selenomethionine, KSM-66 ashwagandha root extract targets the identical problem from the upstream direction, which is where conventional functional medicine protocols almost always fall short by ignoring it. KSM-66 is a full spectrum, highly concentrated ashwagandha extract, standardized to a minimum of 5% with analytes by weight, and produced using a proprietary cold extraction process that preserves the complete range of bioactive root constituents. The mechanism here is not vague adaptogenic support. The withanalydes in ashwagandha have been demonstrated in peer-reviewed clinical research, including a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition to significantly increase measured serum T3 and T4 levels in subjects presenting with subclinical hypothyroid function. The proposed mechanism operates directly on the hypothalamic pituitary axis by reducing the cortisol burden that chronically suppresses thyroid stimulating hormone release. When cortisol is elevated over sustained periods, which it is in the overwhelming majority of stressed, metabolically sluggish adults over 50, the hypothalamus progressively reduces its output of thyrotropin-releasing hormone. This blunts the pituitary signal to the thyroid gland and reduces baseline T4 production even before the conversion problem enters the picture. Ashwagandha's cortisol modulating withanalydes interrupt this suppression cycle at the hormonal root, allowing the natural neuroendocrine cascade to resume its intended function. You are simultaneously feeding the deiodinase conversion enzymes with selenomethionine and unblocking the upstream hormonal signal with ashwagandha. You are attacking a multi-layered problem from both ends of the production line at the same time, which is the only biological strategy that actually produces lasting metabolic results. The third and most overlooked component of this protocol is chelated molybdenum at 100 micrograms, and this precision detail is precisely what separates a genuine functional medicine protocol from a guesswork supplement stack that produces short-term changes and then plateaus. When T4 to T3 conversion accelerates and active T3 production increases rapidly in a body that has been operating in deficit for years, the metabolic byproduct pathway also accelerates with it. Sulfite accumulation is a documented biochemical consequence of increased amino acid turnover and sulfur-containing compound metabolism that occurs when the thyroid axis ramps back toward normal activity. Molybdenum is the essential cofactor for the enzyme sulfite oxidase, the specific enzyme responsible for neutralizing sulfite compounds before they can generate cellular oxidative stress and trigger inflammatory responses in your newly activated metabolic system. Chelated molybdenum, meaning molybdenum bound to an organic amino acid carrier for cellular transport, crosses cell membranes with high efficiency and ensures that as your conversion rate increases and your T3 output rises, your cells are fully biochemically equipped to handle the increased metabolic throughput without producing a new wave of inflammatory burden in the process of resolving the original one. Think of molybdenum as the upgraded exhaust and emission system that must be installed whenever you significantly increase engine output. Without it, you generate new biochemical exhaust pressure while solving the old power problem. With it, The entire biological system runs clean, efficient, and sustainable. Here is your exact metabolic ignition protocol. Every morning, immediately upon sitting down to your first meal of the day, you will take 200 micrograms of selenomethionine, specifically labeled as L-selenomethionine or Seleno-XL on the product panel, 600 milligrams of KSM, 66 ashwagandha root extract, and 100 micrograms of chelated molybdenum. These three compounds must be taken together with food and never on an empty stomach, because the fat-soluble cofactors naturally present in your morning meal significantly enhance the absorption and tissue delivery of the withanolide compounds from the ashwagandha. 2 to 3 times per week, add a palm-sized serving of Brazil nuts as a food-based selenium amplifier. The selenium in Brazil nuts exists naturally in selenomethionine form and directly compounds the enzymatic cofactor supply you are building with supplementation. During the first 7 days of this protocol, eliminate all cruciferous vegetables from your dinner meal. Their goitrogenic compounds compete with iodine transport proteins along the intestinal absorption pathway and can temporarily blunt thyroid receptor sensitivity during the initial enzymatic reactivation phase. Beginning on day 8, you may reintroduce cruciferous vegetables in cooked form only, as heat significantly degrades their goitrogenic activity. Drink a minimum of 2.5 liters of filtered water throughout each day of this protocol. Adequate cellular hydration is a non-negotiable requirement for optimal deiodinase enzyme activity in the kidneys, and dehydration is a commonly ignored suppressor of peripheral thyroid conversion. Starting on day 1 of the protocol, every morning before you get out of bed, before you move your body, before you speak a single word, place a basal body thermometer under your arm and hold it still for 10 full minutes. Record that number. A fully optimized thyroid metabolism in an adult should produce a resting basal temperature consistently between 97.8 and 98.2 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are reading below 97.4 degrees morning after morning, that number is your biological evidence in real time that your active T3 is low and your conversion pathway is incomplete. As your deiodinase enzymes recover with selenomethionine and your upstream hormonal cascade resumes with ashwagandha over the 14 days, your morning basal temperature will rise measurably and consistently. You will feel the change in your hands by the end of the first week. You will feel the change in your afternoon mental clarity and focus. You will feel the difference in how your body processes a meal rather than immediately converting it to stored fat. Track that temperature every single morning without fail. That slowly rising number is your thyroid reboot happening in real time inside your body, and it is the most honest metabolic feedback tool available to you. This is your 1-4-day thyroid reboot challenge. Start tomorrow morning. Throw the iodine pills in the trash tonight. They are not solving your conversion problem. They may be actively inflaming the very gland you are trying to rehabilitate. Take your selenomethionine, your KSM 66, and your chelated molybdenum with your first meal every morning. Track your basal body temperature before you rise every day and write it down in a notebook or your phone. Watch what happens to that number across 2 weeks. Tell someone you love about this video, because there is a person in your life right now wearing a sweater in summer and wondering why the scale will not move despite everything they have tried, and they deserve this information. Subscribe and ring the notification bell right now, because next week I am going to show you the single most overlooked liver compound that is silently blocking your hormone receptors from responding to T3 even after you have successfully restored conversion, a receptor level blockade that explains why some people do absolutely everything right, restore their T3 production, and still feel exhausted, cold, and metabolically stuck. That video contains the final and most critical piece of this entire puzzle. You cannot afford to miss.